president taking aim and taking away top security clearance from a former top intelligence official who has been critical of the president. President Trump today revoking clearance for former CIA Director John Brennan, accusing him of, quote, erratic conduct and behavior. Brennan responding on Twitter, accusing the president tonight of trying to, quote, punish critics, saying it should, quote, gravely worry all Americans, including intelligence professionals, about the cost of speaking out. And tonight, the list of others from the White House press secretary late today that came with a warning that you could be next. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl leading us off.
Taking aim at one of his harshest critics, President Trump today revoked the security clearance of former CIA Director John Brennan, denying him access to classified information. In a statement read by Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, the president invoked Brennan's, quote, wild outbursts on the internet and erratic conduct.
Mr. Brennan's line and recent conduct, characterized by increasingly frenzied commentary, is wholly inconsistent with access to the nation's most closely held secrets.
In a TV appearance just last night, Brennan lashed out at the president.
He is, I think, the most divisive president we've ever had in the Oval Office. He is feeding and fueling hatred and animosity and misunderstandings among Americans.
Brennan is a lifelong intelligence official who served under Republican and Democratic presidents, including as deputy director of the CIA for George W. Bush. Since he left government, he has become a strident Trump critic, even branding as treasonous the president's news conference with Vladimir Putin, where Trump said Putin gave an extremely strong and powerful denial of meddling in the 2016 election.
It is a betrayal of the nation. He is giving aid and comfort to the enemy, and it needs to stop.
Tonight, Brennan tweeted his response to the president's action, calling it part of a broader effort by Mr. Trump to suppress freedom of speech and punish critics, adding it should gravely worry all Americans. And it's not just Brennan in the president's crosshairs. Today, Sanders read a long list of other Trump critics who could lose their security clearances too.
James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr.
It seems like everybody that you mentioned has been a political critic of the president. Is he going after his political opponents with this?
No, if there were others that weren't, that we deemed necessary, we would certainly take a look and review those as well.
All right, so let's get to Jonathan Karl live at the White House tonight. And John Brennan wasn't the only name mentioned. You just had that list there provided by Sarah Sanders. I want to show viewers at home, here's some of the faces. The one thing they all have in common, many of them, as you pointed out there, John, have been critical of decisions made by the president. So bottom line, just how unusual is this for the president himself to revoke the security clearance of a former CIA director and to warn so many others that they could be next?
Well, David, there's no doubt that he has the power to do this, but I cannot find another example of a president personally intervening to strip a former official of his security clearance, let alone one who has not been accused of breaking the law. For his part, Brennan says that this is going to have a chilling effect on former officials who may want to come out and question the president's actions. But I have never seen it happen before.
John Karl leading us off tonight. John, thank you. To that mass overdose tonight in New Haven, Connecticut, authorities now reporting more than 40 overdoses and counting just today alone, many in the same city park. They believe the overdoses are linked to synthetic marijuana known as K2, possibly laced with opioids. New reporting here in that deadly bridge collapse in Genoa, Italy. That death toll, in fact, rising tonight. Dozens of vehicles plunging nearly 150 feet to the ground. And there are concerns this evening that more of that bridge could now fall. Hundreds of nearby residents evacuated. The intense search for survivors still continues. And ABC's Julia McFarland is right there on the scene tonight.
Tonight, a clear look at the devastation after that catastrophic bridge collapse. At least 39 are dead, and officials worry tonight that number may rise. Rescuers desperately sifting through twisting piles of steel and concrete, searching for survivors.
The possibility of finding people alive under the rubble are shrinking with the passing time, but we never lose hope.
This This video capturing the moment the heavily trafficked bridge came crashing down Monday during a sudden rainstorm, taking over 30 vehicles with it. These residents telling me when the bridge collapsed, it felt like an earthquake. And the danger may not be over yet. There are fears that the rest of the bridge may collapse on top of those houses. This image showing the bridge before. Tonight, over 600 people evacuated from those surrounding buildings. Investigators trying to determine what caused the massive span to plummet, looking at possible design flaws or inadequate maintenance. The Prime Minister vowing action, saying these are unacceptable tragedies that should not happen in a modern society.
And Julia McFarland reporting in tonight from Genoa, Italy. And Julia, last night as this was breaking, you reported here on the growing concern in Italy over the safety of roads and bridges. We've, of course, heard that debate right here in the U.S. as well. You're now at the bridge site tonight. Officials are worried that more of that bridge could collapse.
Exactly, David. That's a real fear here, that more of that bridge could collapse, taking with it more structures and threatening more lives. There's real outrage here in Italy tonight, but despite that, neither the government nor the private company that's responsible for the highways is taking any responsibility for this tragedy. That debate on the safety of public infrastructure in this country continues. David?
Julia McFarland with us again tonight. Breaking news from Cape Cod at this hour. A shark attack late today. A swimmer bitten on the leg rushed to the hospital. Swimmers rushed out of the water right there in Truro, Massachusetts. In fact, several shark sightings have been reported in that area in recent days. ABC's Lindsay Davis tonight with the images coming in now.
Tonight, paramedics airlifting this man to a hospital for medical treatment after a suspected shark attack off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Call it Long Nook Beach for a subject possibly bitten by a shark in the thigh.
The call came in to police in Truro, Massachusetts around 4:30 this afternoon. The 61-year-old man was conscious and talking, but reportedly suffered puncture wounds to his torso and leg. This beach is now closed until further notice. While this would be the first shark attack in Massachusetts in 6 years, several shark sightings have been reported in the area in recent days. At least 2 great whites spotted just 100 yards off the shore. Whoa! This was the scene off the coast of Cape Cod just last week when a great white jumped out of the water, lunging at this shark scientist. Did you see that? And just last month, 2 children playing in the waters off Fire Island, New York, were bitten by sharks. Both suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
All right, so let's get to Lindsay Davis tonight, monitoring developments as they come in. Do we know anything about the swimmer's condition tonight, Lindsay?
One witness said that the bite on the man's leg was very serious, calling it much more than just a puncture wound. And David, we also know that there are more seals in the area than normal, which can, of course, attract their predators, sharks.
Especially this time of year. Yes. I was a reporter there for many years. I know it well. So, Lindsay, thank you.
Are going back to school, and it's the first day of school, but of course this year in February, 17 people, students and people who worked at the school, lost their lives in a tragic mass shooting. So we have one of our reporters, Stephanie Wash, who's there in Florida. She has spent a lot of time with these students, with the community. And first, before we go to Stephanie, let's take a listen to what some of the students have said about what going back to school means for them.
I'm expecting to go back to school like every other year, but at the same time, you know that it's never going to be a normal again, you know. I like to think of it as a new normal, but I wish we didn't have to experience this new normal. I wish it was just like every other year. I pick out my clothes, I have a good time, but this year I can't help but constantly think about not only myself and my friends at my school, but constantly thinking about my friends at other schools who don't have as many safety precautions as we now do, and I worry about them.
Stephanie, you know, the first day of school is supposed to be a happy day. It's supposed to be a normal day for high school students. They shouldn't have to be thinking about this and dealing with all of this. As I said, you've spent so much time with these families in the aftermath since February. What does this milestone mean for them?
Well, today, as the students are returning to school, I mean, just behind me, the students are right here in school. They're about to be wrapping in just under 4 hours their first day of classes. A lot of the students that we've been talking to over the last 6 months have been dealing what we've described as this new normal, where there's new security, there's new threats that, you know, they have to think about constantly. As Lauren Hogg described, who's actually one of the youngest members of March for Our Lives and who has spent her entire summer as a full-time activist on the road speaking to young voters, you know, the last thing she wants to worry about is school safety here at Stoneman Douglas. She wants to worry about what she's going to wear to school today. But what she is facing is this new normal. She's worried about her friends who are at other schools that might not have the same safety measures in place as Stoneman Douglas. We also ran into Victoria Gonzalez this morning. Victoria is someone who we've spent a lot of time with over the last 6 months. She tragically lost her boyfriend, Joaquin Oliver, in that mass shooting. And Victoria is somebody who is obviously grappling with the loss of her boyfriend, but at the same time, it's what we described again, this new normal where she's returning to school. She went yesterday and picked up her school supplies. She's expecting that today is going to be as normal a day as any. Nothing special will be happening, which is what a lot of these students want. And I know the school district is trying to make these students feel, you know, this is just a normal school year, as difficult as that may be.
And I guess the question for me is that even possible? As normal as they want to make this day, they're still going back to the same campus. The building where most of the people were shot last year is not being used. It's closed down. So are there just constant reminders of what happened for them?
Oh, they are everywhere here on this campus. So first of all, behind me, I don't know if you can see, but there is a freshman building down here. That freshman building still stands and is one of the survivors of the attack who was actually in the first classroom that was attacked. Brooke Harrison told me she's spoken to a lot of students who are a little weirded out that that building is still here on campus. But why that's happening is that there's a trial still going on. That is evidence for the state. So that will stay there and it will remain, and eventually they will be turning that freshman into a memorial for the 17 lives lost. Now there's also new security measures on here, which I touched upon lightly before. So what they'll be doing is there will be a mandatory school resource officer or armed school safety officer on every campus. They also will be having mandatory lockdown drills. I know here at Stoneman Douglas they will be having one drill, at least one drill monthly. And also, you know, they had these measures in place where they had clear backpacks. That's been thrown out. What they're really focusing on now is the mental health of the students. And of course, another reminder is that there is still a looming trial in this community. The suspect is expected in court later today. So as hard as this community, I think, wants to continue on and go back to some sense of normalcy, there are these constant reminders.